Hi class, in this video we are going to cover how to set up routing between two physical sites. I signed into my lab. Last time I didn't show you this, but I shut down all my machines. So I just rebooted everything up, all DC1, DC2, DC5, and DC6. I gave them a few minutes and I also booted up my two routers. I should have done this ahead of time. I'm going to go to BC Online. I'm going to pull up our diagram for our network. So what we're going to configure today is these two routers. We're going to have all the machines on this west site go out to the internet. All the machines on the east side go out to the internet. If this interface fails, we want all these machines to go across the WAN link. This WAN link is being provided by our ISP. It costs us a lot of money. So we want to avoid using this as much as possible. And if this link goes down, all these machines will go across the WAN link and go out this interface to the internet. So we're going to have a redundant route to the internet. By default, these machines will go out here, and these machines will go out here. If this goes down, these machines will go across the WAN link, then go out here. If this link goes down, all these machines will go across the WAN link and go out here. So that's what we're going to set up today. The IP addresses that we're using is 172.16.0.1/21 here, and 172.16.8.1/21 right here. And for the WAN side, it'll be 16.1 and 16.2 with a /30. When you see a /30, that's a point-to-point connection, meaning there's only two usable hosts in this subnet. So I'm going to sign into NAT1. I'm going to do the same to NAT2. It's running a little slow today. That's my cat in the background. It loves to be the victim. He wants to go outside right now. So he's going to sit at the door and cry the whole time. Okay, I've signed in NAT 2. Now I'm going back to NAT 1. I'm going to click yes to relax my firewall. So like always, first thing we do is configure the eyepiece. Now, here's where most people mess up. They don't label their network cards properly. So they assign the wrong IP address to the wrong network card. So I'm going to go to my network cards. And I'm going to double click on each network card. And click details. So that has an IP address. I'm double clicking. Click on details. Again, an IP address. So on the third network card, I'm going to double click, go to details. And this has a 10 address. I'm familiar with the ACE environment, and I know that ACE IT Lab gave me this IP. So this is my public interface, the one with the 10 address. So I'm going to close this out and rename this interface public. Public. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to lab. I need to look at the MAC address on my NAT 1. So up here I created 3 networks, four networks. A public network, I didn't actually create that, it was there by default. A West network, an East network, and a WAN network. They're actually switches, virtual switches. So I have 4 virtual switches. So if I look at NAT 1, the network interface that ends in 0A is attached to the West switch. So for me, it's 0A. For you, it's going to be different. And you can't always assume that the order they're here is going to be the order they're inside the virtual machine. So I'm going to click console. Double click this interface. Go to detail. And I can see this ends in 0A. So I'm going to rename this West. Hit the tab key. So this one has to be WAN. This is running really slow today. I'm going to pause the video. When this happens, I just go back to lab and come back and it's fine. Okay, so I'm going to rename this interface WAN. So now I'm going to assign an IP address to West. I'm just going to go back to lab one more time to show you that. So NAT 1 has 3 network cards attached to 3 different switches. One called West, one called WAN, one called public. So I just labeled my interfaces appropriately. West, WAN, public. This is attached to the public switch. This is attached to the WAN switch. This is attached to the West switch. I determined this based on the MAC address. I looked at this and I found the IP address was a public IP, so I knew that was my public interface. So that must mean this is a WAN. So I want to configure an IP for West. So the IP address is 172.16.0.1 with a /21 subnet mask. I don't have a gateway because my gateway will automatically be on my public interface that I get from the school's network. You should only have one gateway per computer. One default gateway, I should say. That's DC1. That is DC3. DC2, which has an IP address of 0.3. So I'm using this machine and this machine as my DNS servers. Click OK. Click OK. Click Close. So now I'm going to configure the WAN interface. If I look at my map, that should have an IP address of 172.16.16.1/30. Guys, I use VLSM to create these networks. This network can accommodate 2,000 hosts. This network can accommodate 2 hosts, and this network can accommodate 2,000 hosts. VLSM is variable length subnet mask, meaning I'm not going to have the same subnet mask in all of my subnets. They're going to vary. Variable length. In this case is 21 bits. This case is 30 bits. This case is 21 bits. So 172.16.16.1, 255.255.255.252. I have a total of 32 bits. 30 of them are network bits, 2 of them are host bits. 2 to the 2 is 4, minus 2 equals 2. That will give me 2 hosts in this subnet. And when I'm dealing with 2 routers talking to one another, that's all I need is 2 hosts. One there, 2 usable IPs. And I'm going to use the same DNS servers. Click OK. Sorry, I clicked in the wrong area. Click OK. Click OK. Click Close. I'm just going to do a refresh so I can see my IP addresses. My public IP will be dynamic, assigned to me by my ISP, which is this school. My WAN will be in the 172.16.16/30 subnet. And my West interface will be in the 172.16.0.0/21 subnet. Next thing I'm going to do is rename. NAT1. Click OK, 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 close, and it'll prompt you to restart. Okay, while that's rebooting, I'm going to, maybe not. Please note that these two machines are connected to the internet directly. So I don't want to join them to the domain. If they get hacked, I don't want the hacker to have any sort of domain access, or domain credentials rather. I'm going to sign in. I'm going to go back to lab. I chose a very poor time to do this. This is not having anything to do with ACE running slowly. I think this is our interface to Broward College that is being overwhelmed. A lot of professors are doing the BB Collaborate, and it's absorbing a lot of bandwidth. I'm going to sign in. I'm going to pause the video for a minute. Okay, I'm back. I'm signed in. So now I'm going to install the routing software. Add roles and features. Going to go all the way, going to go down to server roles. Then we're going to choose remote access. I'm going to go down to role services and choose routing. It'll automatically select the top one too. I'm going to add the tools to manage routing. It's going to install a web server because the direct access uses a web server, if you remember that from the last class. Now I'm just going to walk through the wizard and click restart. And then install. Now while that's installing, I'm going to jump over to NAT2. Click yes to relax our firewall. The first thing we're going to do is our network cards. This says unidentified network, unidentified network. This one says network, so I know that's my public interface. So I'm going to rename it public. I'm going to go back to lab. Scroll down to NAT2. The interface ending in 0D for me is attached to the east switch. So I'm going to connect to NAT2. I'm going to double click. Details. And I can see this is 0D, so this is attached to the east switch. So this one must be attached to the WAN. I'm going to go back to my diagram. So this one is going to have, east will have an IP address of 8.1, and the WAN interface will have an IP address of 16.2. Okay, so I'm going to configure east. (172.16.8.1) with a subnet mask of 255.255.248. Guys, look at the time. It's about 12:30. A lot of classes are ending right now on campus, and you notice that it is getting quicker. So keep that in mind when you do your labs. Try to avoid times when classes are at their peak. For the DNS servers, I'm going to go back to my map. These machines aren't configured yet, but I'm going to use these two as DNS servers for this machine. The reason being is I don't want to send DNS traffic across this WAN link to resolve names. I'll have two DNS servers on the east site, so I'm going to use those for anything attached to the east site. I'm going to try to avoid sending any DNS traffic across this WAN link, because at that point it's just going to cost me money. This WAN link is controlled by my ISP. We call that black box because we really don't know what's going on between these two sites. We contact our ISP and they make that connection for us. It could be a bunch of different technologies they use to make that connection. We don't know. So 8.2 and 8.3, these two machines are going to be my DNS servers. So I'm going to click OK. OK. Close. Now I'm going to configure the WAN. (172.16.16.2) with a subnet mask of /30, which if I convert that from binary to decimal, it will be 255.255.255.252. I'll have 30 network bits and 2 host bits. And again, I'm going to use the same DNS servers on the east site. So this machine won't be able to connect to the internet until those two machines are actually configured. Just going to hit refresh. East has 8.1. WAN has 16.2, and public is dynamic. If I do an IP config all, I can see this is my east interface. It has a MAC address of 0.d and it's 8.1. If you go back to lab, east is 0D, west is 7.6, public is 7E. Yours are going to be different. WAN is 7.6 and public is 7E. I'm going to close this out. So now I'm going to rename, reboot, and then install a software. Again, it's not joined to the domain. It's directly connected to the internet. We don't want to give hackers too much access. Yeah, it flies after those 12:30 classes get out. Let our interface load up, our server manager, and then we're going to install the remote access software. Waiting for the blue bar to stop. I'm going to choose remote access. Then routing. Then click restart. Install. Now while that's installing, I'm going to go back to NAT 1. It should be installed. It is, so I'm going to click close. Tools. I'm going to choose routing and remote access. I'm going to turn this into a NAT router. Highlight my server. Right click, configure and enable. I'm going to choose NAT. I got the glitch. Right click, configure and enable. Choose NAT, which is the second bullet point, second radio button rather. So, which is my public interface? The one labeled public. Now it's asking where do I want to share my with which network do I want to share my internet access? In this case, I want to do both, but the wizard won't allow me to choose both. So I'm going to choose one, and when I get inside, I'll manually add the other one. Click next, then finish. going to expand it, expand IPv4. If you don't have NAT here, you can try to reboot it and do it again. If you still don't have NAT here, uninstall routing remote access, reinstall it, and go through this wizard again. So I'm going to highlight NAT. I can see I have one public interface. If I right click it, I can see it's a public interface with NAT enabled. I have the WAN interface, which is private. And then I have this internal interface that's used by the router itself. If you don't have it, you can manually add it with the next step. So I'm going to right click, say new interface. I'm going to add any interfaces here to NAT. So this is going to be a new network I want it to translate out via the NAT interface. Click OK, and it's going to be a private interface. So I should have one public interface and 3 private. West, used for the West network. So the West network will be able to get out to the internet using that. The WAN network. The reason why I added WAN is because should this interface comes down, I want all these people to go across the WAN interface or the WAN connection to get out here. So I need this router to translate these to my public IP address and translate anything from this network, meaning all these machines, translate that out to the internet. And the last one is the internal interface used by the router itself. So now here's where it gets a little sticky. So I'm going to right click and look at my static routes. I'm going to look at all my routing table. So I know about the internet, my quad 0 routes. That's my default gateway. These 10 addresses are from the school's network. So I know about the West site. This router is directly connected to the West site, so it automatically added an entry in the routing table for the West site. I know about the WAN site, the WAN subnet, because again, I'm directly attached. It added an entry in the routing table. What I don't know about is this 172.16.8.0/21 subnet. My router is not directly attached to it, so it didn't add it. So we have to do that manually using a static route. So I'm going to right click, static routes, add a new static route. So if I had a packet on this router that's destined for this subnet over here, which interface should that packet exit this router? Should it exit off of the West, out the West interface, the public interface, or the WAN interface? In this case, if the packet is destined for over here, I should send the packet out the WAN interface. So I'm going to choose WAN. That subnet ID and subnet mask that goes with that ID is 172.16.8.0. Don't put in any one single IP. Put in the subnet because you want this one entry to account for all of the computers on that network. That's the subnet mask that goes with that subnet. So now where do I want to send the packet out? It leaves this interface and I want to send it to the next router in line, which is 16.2. So I want to have it exit this interface, send it to this interface or this router and let that router take it over here. So I don't need to take it over here. I just need to get it to this router and let this router handle it from there. And so the gateway will be 172.16.16.2. Don't worry about the metrics. Microsoft will automatically fix the metrics for us. That's the cost of that route. Right now, I'm only going to have one route to that destination, so the metric really doesn't matter. If I had redundant routes to that destination, then it would matter. We'll click OK. So now I'm going to do a redundant static route for my default gateway. So by default, it wants to go out the public interface to get to the internet. Now I'm going to add an alternate route. So I'm going to right click static routes, add a new static route. So I'm going to say if you want to get to the internet and the default route of public is down, send it over the WAN link to the other router. So a default route is always represented by quad zeros with no subnet mask. So that essentially means any interface, any packet that you don't get a match for, this will always match. And I'm going to send it to NAT2. And I'm going to bump up the metric. I'm going to just say 500. It doesn't really matter. Microsoft will change it. I just want it high. So I'm going to click yes. I'm going to relax the firewall. Okay, so I'm going to show my routing table now. I have two default gateways. One going out the public interface and one going out the WAN interface to NAT2. The computer will choose this one over this one because it has a lower metric. This is a more preferred route. If this interface goes down, this will become the preferred route and will send packets over to NAT2 to get to the internet. So we just added a redundant default route. I'm going to open up a command prompt. I'm going to change my font so you can see it. I can't remember the command. Trace route. Trace RT for route. 8.8.8.8. That will show me where it goes. You can see it's going to the schools network. There's some other things here for ACIT, but you can see it goes off the schools, the public interface, 10.0.0.1. So I'm going to press cancel. This kind of shows you the path a packet takes, trace cert. It looks like trace cert, but it's really trace route. Okay, I'm going to exit this out. Now I'm going to do the same thing to NAT2. I'm going to I can see it's installed. Now I'm going to configure it. Tools, routing and remote access. Configure and enable routing and remote access. Click next. We're going to do NAT. Got the glitch. Configure. Choose NAT. Choose the WAN public interface that connects me to the internet. Doesn't matter which one you choose here, because I'm going to add the other one once I get inside. Again, if you don't have NAT, you might have to uninstall and reinstall this. So there's my public interface, which has NAT enabled, my internal interface, and my east. So any ones you're missing, just right click NAT, add a new interface, add it, and make sure it says private. I only had to do one, you might have to do internal as well. So now I'm going to look at static routes. So I can see that I know about the 8 network because I'm directly attached. I know about the 16 network because I'm directly attached. I don't know about the 0.0 network. So I'm going to right click, add a new static route. Guys, you should have done this in Network Plus. This is just kind of a review. If I had a packet on this router destined for this network, I'm going to send it out the WAN link to NAT1. So I'm going to send it out my WAN link. The destination network is 172.16.0.0. Subnet mask is 255.255.248.0. And I'm going to send it to 172.16.16.1. Again, I've said this in my Network Plus class, 150% of the time, your interface and your gateway needs to be in the same subnet. This has an IP of 172.16.16.2, and this has an IP address of 172.16.16.1. So I can see they're in the same subnet. The next thing I need to do is add a redundant default gateway through the WAN interface. Again, that's for the purpose, if this goes down, I want to send traffic over here to get out to the internet. So I'm going to do a new static route. I'm going to send it out the WAN interface for any network I don't get a match for, meaning if I don't have an entry in my routing table for the network I want to go to, this will be the one that it will find. 172.16.16.1. So basically that is NAT1. Send it out the WAN interface to NAT1. And if I look, and then I'm going to relax my firewall because it just discovered that new network. So I'm going to right click, show my IP routing table. I can see I have 2 interfaces. Guys, notice on this one I didn't change the metric. It's still fine. This metric is very low. It'll be the preferred route. If this one goes down, this one will kick in. The only other thing that you might want to do is to play around with ping to make sure you can get to both sides. I'm fine with what I'm doing. You might need to open up your firewall. So if you want, you can go to both machines. It's okay, Sophie. The cat's cried the whole video. So I'm going to go to inbound, file and printer sharing echo request. I'm going to enable both those rules and do the same thing for outbound. Echo request, enable. So I'm going to go over to NAT1 and do the same thing. Okay, I'm going to show you something else before I go. I'm going to bring up my interfaces. Open up a command prompt. I'm going to ping repeatedly 8.8.8.8. So right now it's going out the public interface. I'm on this machine. It's going to ping out to the internet right there. If I take this interface, disable it, and watch my ping, it doesn't stop because it found the other route, and from here it went out over here out to this interface. I'm going to show you my routing table now that I've disabled that public interface. So if I look at my routing table, I can see I only have one entry for the WAN interface because my public interface is down. I'm going to re-enable my public interface. See, my ping hasn't stopped at all. Now I'm going to look at my routing table again. Now I have two default routes again. This is the more preferred route. Okay, I'm also going to test if I can ping the FAR interface. So I'm going to try to ping from 16.0.1 to 16.8.1 from the far side to the far side. So I'm going to do ping dash shift S 172.16.6 0.1. That's the source interface I want to ping from, and the destination is 16.8.1. The reason why I'm trying to, and it worked successfully, the reason why I'm trying to ping here, because if I just use ping alone without putting a source address, it'll automatically ping from this interface. But if I force it to ping from here over to here, I'm testing NAT 1 to make sure NAT 1 is routing. I want to make sure I can take the packet from here, route it over here, send it over to this interface, then route it here. I'm going to close this interface. Okay. At this point, we have a connection between our two sites. So I'm going to stop this video. Our next video will be going through setting up sites and services. We're going to define in Active Directory what's a site. That this is one site and this is one site. Then Active Directory will be smart enough to realize it's going to try to contain all the traffic to this site and all the traffic to this site, and it's going to allow you to control what goes across that WAN link. Again, that costs us money. We want to try to keep as much traffic as we can off that WAN link. Okay, so that's it for this video. I will see you in the next video. Thank you.